Okay, we're ready for 7.2 in Algebra 1, and we're going to talk about multiplying two binomials in this section. So the first method that the book will show you is the distributive property. So let's say we're going to multiply these two binomials, x plus 1 times x plus 3. So the first thing we're going to do is take this term and multiply it by this whole thing, so x times x plus 3, and then we're going to take this term and multiply it by that, plus 1 times x plus 3. So this would be x times x is x squared, x times 3 is positive 3x, 1 times x is x, 1 times 3 is 3, and then the next step is I would combine like terms. I can add those two things together. So this would be x squared plus 3x plus x is 4x plus 3. So notice that when you multiply two binomials, you get a trinomial as your product. And we'll in the future, we'll refer to this as the first term, the middle term, and the last term, okay? So you also might remember learning about FOIL. And FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. This is the one I usually do all the time in class because it's easy for kids to remember. And this is how we're going to do it. So the first means the first term in both. X times x is x squared. The outside would be these two because it's on the outside of the setup. 3 times x is a positive 3x. And then the inside product would be a positive x. And then the last terms. 1 times 3 is positive 3. Again, I'm going to collect like terms, which means the two middle terms. So remember that the O and I create this middle term here. So 3x plus x is, again, 4x. So that's for multiplying two binomials. What if I'm multiplying polynomials that aren't two binomials? Well, then I would use the distributive property. So I would take this term and multiply it by everything in there. And then I would take the positive 2 and multiply it by everything in there. X times x squared is x cubed. X times 3x is 3x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And at this point, then we want to combine our like terms. Be very careful when you do this because it's easy to make sign error changes. So I only have one of these, so I'm just going to write it down. I like to cross them out as I go so I don't get mixed up. My next term then would be the squared terms, right? And I have two of them. 3x squared plus 2x squared is 5x squared. Done with those. My next term would be the x's, and I have negative 4x plus 6x, which is 2x, and then the only thing left is negative 8. It's really helpful to cross these out as you go. You don't end up adding something twice or missing something. And I think, I'm going to go ahead and present 7.3 right now, just because it doesn't take very long to present the section. So this is 7.3, and we're talking about special products of polynomials. So if you're taking a binomial and you're squaring it, in other words, this is a plus b times a plus b. Both binomials are exactly the same. You could write this out like I just did and then FOIL it and get this. But a faster way, this is called a trinomial square, by the way. Perfect trinomial squares. So what this means is you're going to take the first term and square it. You're going to take the last term and square it. That becomes the last term. And then to get the middle term, you multiply these two together and double it. So let's see if that quick method helps us here. So square the first term, that'd be x squared. Square the last term, that'd be 9. Multiply them together and then double them, which is 6x squared. And again, that is called a perfect trinomial square. Okay, so here's one. Same thing, only this is minus instead of plus. And the only difference is that your middle term is going to be negative. Everything else is still positive, because remember, if you square something, you can't ever end up with a negative number. So the first term and the last term are always going to be positive, and the middle term will be negative if this is subtracting. So square the first term is x squared. Square this last term is positive 16. To get the middle term, you multiply these two together, which is negative 4x, and then you double it, which is negative 8x. Again, you could write this out and FOIL that, and you'd get the same answer. But if you know some of these tricks, sometimes it's a little faster. Okay, so what happens if you have two binomials? The first terms are exactly the same. The last terms are exactly the same, but one's plus and one's minus. Well, if you think about when you're FOILing, what causes that middle term to happen is the outside, that would be negative a times b. The inside would be a positive ab. Well, those cancel each other out, and you no longer have a middle term. So this is called a difference of two squares, when the binomials are the same in every respect except for the operation right here. So you square the first term, you square the last term, and there is no middle term, but this is negative. And that is called a difference of two squares. So in other words, let's do this example. X plus 3 times x minus 3. Square the first term, x squared. Square the second term, 9. And it's going to be negative, because if you FOILed this, the outside and inside products cancel each other out. And that is it, I think, for 7.3.